Thank you for joining me for the completion of the pocket watch case project. I'm engraving a monogram that I had found in a book called the Encyclopedia of Monograms. It's a compilation of monograms from the 1800s, 1700s, and possibly, I would have to look again, possibly the early 1900s when monograms were the most popular. Applied often to letterheads and personal items. Still a very popular motif today for engraving. In this case, there's really no reason to invent the wheel. You can find many beautiful monograms to draw inspiration from in antique books. The Encyclopedia of Monograms is really good. I'll post a link to it in the details. But you can see here, it's kind of a ribbon script. What I'm doing is I'm cutting the outline of the monogram. And I'm going to do a new technique that I'd never tried before, where I'm going to use a airbrush size sandblaster to blast a texture onto the metal. Using a very fine medium. It will give it a frosted look. So what I want to do is outside of the border, on the outside of the case, it will have a frosted look. The border where the half leaf is will be shiny, and then the background of the monogram will be shiny. I want to kind of give it a reversed look, and the interior of the monogram will have a blasted, frosted finish. You can see I'm taking care to follow the outside of the monogram line. Here, I'm not rolling the graver. I'm not trying to get a bright cut. I'm just trying to get a clean line. What the process requires is for me to mask all of the spaces where I'm going to leave shiny versus frosted from the sandblast. And so I wanted to have a very flat look, and I want the frosted part of the blasted monogram to kind of sit back in space a little bit. So I don't want to necessarily cut a bright cut on the outside so that it will pop forward. This is the theory that I have. So you can see, just taking care to make sure all the lines are clean. Everything is correct and right, and then I'll go back and cut the outside, tape over with a masking tape, and then come back and cut around the outside of the lines. Okay, so you can see here, we've got all of our lines of the monogram cut. Beautiful script, a beautiful ribbon type monogram. The letters are A and M. It's very abstract. It's kind of scroll, gives it a scroll look. Just really kind of abstract and beautiful. Something that's going to really stand out on the back of the watch. So here I've already applied the masking tape. It's a very specific masking tape. I'm going to do more of a process video of the masking process, of the materials required to do this technique. It's a little more advanced. You have to have equipment, specific equipment, to be able to do this beyond what's normally involved for engraving. But I find that a project like this, or when you start to apply different surface finishes, it really can set the work apart. It gives it a different feel. That's one of the things about working with metal. There's so many different ways to apply finishes, different ways to apply, engraving cuts, etc., to give a different effect. And this is just another way to affect the surface to give you visually more interest in the piece. I'm using a surgeon's scalpel. I find that it was recommended to me, and I find that it does work better than an X-Acto. The tip, you can order different tips. This is a number 3, I believe, and it's very fine. It's super sharp, very fine, and you're able to get inside the smallest engraving cuts and have some accuracy. I'm not pushing super hard to cut. I don't want to slip. What I'm doing is just letting the tip of the scalpel just penetrate the tape so that I can then remove the tape and leave behind the mask where I don't want the media from the sandblast to touch the surface. You can see as I'm pulling it off what's going to happen. So where it's yellow, that will be protected from the sandblast. Here I'm cutting the secondary border. Beyond the shiny half leaf, there will be a matted border just on the inside that will give a little bit of a different finish. It will allow the background to also be shiny as well. Now I'm starting to cut around the outside of the monogram. This is really a case for just taking your time and enjoying the process. One lesson that I learned, you can see where, especially on the bottom half of the monogram, that I overlapped quite a bit with 2 pieces of the masking tape. I recommend not overlapping as much as that because you're having to cut through 2 pieces of tape, which isn't too difficult. It just adds a little bit of complexity to it. I recommend not doing that. That's one thing I learned. As you're cutting, you want to be extra careful not to scratch what's going to be the shiny surface. You want to take extra care and caution. I'm using a pair of jeweler's tweezers or watchmaker's tweezers. Ideally, I should be using brass. Brass is a lot softer, even though this material, nickel silver, is also really soft and scratches really easily. You should use the softest material to protect the softest tweezers to protect the surface of your workpiece. You can go back and repair if you tear a part of the mask. You just have to tape over it and then recut, but make sure to do that minimally. Now you can see I've sandblasted here. It's very difficult to film. I tried, it didn't work out at all. So I'll have to come up with a system to be able to film the sandblast process, as I plan on doing this to a few more pieces in the near future. But you can see as I peel the surface of the background from where the monogram is, you can see the contrast that it leaves, a frosted surface versus a shinier surface. And when inked, it really gives a distinct look because you have the surface that's frosted accepts the ink in a way where it looks almost smoky. And then you've got the contrast of the monogram on the shiny background with the beautiful border, and it really gives a nice look. Check my YouTube shorts for the final piece. I'm going to post the YouTube short of the finished piece. I just wanted to show the process of what it takes to mask this in preparation for sandblasting. Like I said, in the future I'll be doing a video that actually shows the process of sandblasting. I just need to figure out a better way to film first. The one thing I like about hand engraving is that it is a creative art. There's so many different approaches that you can take to applying a monogram to the back of a watch. So many different surface finishes, way to engrave, background removals, etc. These choices are something you make, creative choices are something you make at the beginning of a project. And along the way you learn, you experiment, you try different things, and in the end you have a very unique piece, and hopefully it's something that you can learn from so that you can apply it to different aspects of engraving. Like I said, this is an old technique. It's been around for quite a while, and almost nothing, there's nothing that I do that I've invented. Everything that I do I've learned from someone else, learned from other engravers, learned by looking. And I think that's the best way, is to find people you admire, ask questions, find engraving techniques that confuse you, ask questions about how they're done from the engravers. I found our community is very helpful, very open to sharing ideas and sharing information. I appreciate you joining me for the completion of this project, and I look forward to sharing a little more of this technique in the future. Thanks.